Yuri Breyer was upset. He just had another encounter with the man who had married his lovely sister, Lloyd Forger. With his stupid blonde hair and stupid blue eyes. Damn it. Why did Lloyd have to visit the same tailor as he did? Though, without Yuri to keep him under control, he peppered the unprepared man with difficult questions about his childhood, his job, and personality, fishing for anything devious to tell Yuri. Utilizing his SSS training and interrogation prowess. Though, sadly, nothing interesting came from that. Yuri faked being nice by giving Lloyd the go-ahead to do his tailoring business before him, knowing fully well he'd tell Yuri if he was mean to her husband. To cool off, the lieutenant entered the hair salon. He was a regular there. The elderly woman here had incredibly soft fingers. Skilled, too. He always went there to get a quick hair treatment. Not that he needed it right now, but it was cheaper than getting an actual scalp massage at a spa. As the old ladies chattered while he was getting ready to get his hair done, he closed his eyes, prepared to feel those wrinkly old grandma fingers massage his skin. Though something was off. As seconds later, warm water cascaded onto his hair, he realized those weren't grandma fingers. Soft and gentle young fingers instead. A little untrained, clearly, but... Must be a new girl, he thought. He didn't expect that. He heard the click of a shampoo bottle, quickly followed by a bottle fart. He suppressed a smile. Such juvenile noises would not get to him. After a moment of silence, the hands returned. He could feel a calmness overwhelm him. He had only felt when Yuri bathed with him when he was just 3 years old. While he understood why they needed to stop doing that together, he did miss it a little. The woman suddenly touched a small bump on his head that he got one night after drinking too much. He winced, and a beautiful female voice apologized to him. He raised his right hand a little. "Don't worry about it," he said. The woman continued preparing his hair. He sighed pleased after a short while. But that's when the water turned off, and he opened his eyes. New, looking back with a kind smile. He had been working at the salon for only a short while. The place he worked at previously had closed down, as the owner of that place had been accused of being a spy for Vestalis, the rival nation to your country of Astania. You were glad you got the job, though. It was only 2 extra bus stops away from your previous place of employment. And despite sticking out like a sore thumb due to the age of the other employees, the old ladies accepted you. Mostly because you were just as good at gossip as they were. The man you were working on looked into your eyes for only a split second, before a blush came to his face. In response, you merely smiled awkwardly. You knew he was a regular, considering how reluctant the other employees were about you working on him while still being in your testing period. Meanwhile, Yuri was having conniptions. You had long black hair, held back by a ponytail to keep your eyes free to work better. Soft facial features. Wore a red turtleneck that reached down to your legs, almost like a dress. He also noticed your heterochromia. Your right eye was red as the setting sun, while your other was green. Honestly, you got a surprising amount of attention from male customers. Though the face he was giving you was pure shock. Was almost making you back off. Is something wrong, sir? You asked cautiously. Yuri blinked and lifted his head, letting you dry his hair. His heart pounded. You looked almost exactly like Yor. He really didn't see this coming. You carefully dried his hair, making sure to stay away from the bump, before guiding him to an empty chair. He was absolutely awestruck. Would you like a beverage, sir? You asked. Tea, he said, sounding breathless. Was he alright? You were getting worried. You opened your mouth to list the different teas the salon offered for customers, but he cut you off. Peppermint, 3 cubes of sugar. Understood, sir. With his eyes focused on your image in the mirror he was sitting in front of, his brain was trying to justify that you weren't Yor, and that he was just simply seeing things. After all, his sister was the most important person in his life. Meanwhile, his libido activated. And sadly, it completely agreed with the notion of, yes, this person in fact wasn't Yor, and that was a good thing. His left eye twitched as you leaned down to grab the box of peppermint tea bags from a lower drawer. He gulped, refusing to acknowledge the perfect roundness of your rear. You returned to his side with the tea, placing the cup down before him. He then brushed his hair with a professional comb. Once his hair was straightened, you took some and simply asked, "So, how short would you like it?" "Just the tips, and thin it out a bit." "Understood." Using the same comb, you measured his hair. "This?" "A bit longer." You went a little further to his tips. Okay, that's enough," he said. So you would shorten it by about a centimeter, maybe a little less. After about 10 minutes of you snipping his hair, he noticed something. You worked a bit slower, but that was understandable. After all, you were a new hire. Though he didn't mind. He liked looking at you while having his hair done. But eventually, the silence got to him, and he began talking. "So, for how long have you been working here?" Humming friendly, you replied, "About 3 weeks, maybe 4. "Where did you work before?" "Tight Cuts. It was another salon. I was a trainee." Yuri blinked. He had been the one who had interrogated your previous employee. Yuri blinked, suppressing a blush. He was the one who had interrogated your previous employer, though he never mentioned you when he asked about his employees. The guy had protected your identity quite well. He was surprised. And honestly, he was technically obligated now to show you his badge and arrest you for interrogation for any information you may or may not have. Though something told him not only did you not know anything, but also, maybe, he was hoping for something. But what that was, he didn't know. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. So the cutting continued. "Was hairstylist your first choice of job?" You didn't answer immediately. That was quite a personal question. Yet you felt comfortable enough to answer it. "Well, no, actually. You see, my father was a military man until his retirement. So I was hoping I could maybe work at something more official, maybe like City Hall or... Well, you blushed. This was a bit embarrassing. To be frank, I kinda wished I was a prodigy at something more physical, so I could serve my country more directly. Like an assassin? You were taken aback a bit. I mean, maybe. Yuri exhaled, a little relieved. Yor could never be an assassin. So the more differences there were between the two, the better. Yeah, that would be pretty cool, he said jokingly. Yuri liked your enthusiasm. Sadly though, for the both of you, his treatment was soon finished. Thank you, please come again, you said as he left the salon. Damn it, you should have asked for his name. He was kinda hot. Totally your type. Even though he was a bit odd. But that made him very interesting. Yuri, on the other hand, was an emotional wreck. Over the next week, the image of you in his mind was fusing with yours. He didn't know if he was thinking of you or his sister during his job at the SSS. He was losing his mind. Thinking of his sister was usually good, and justified to him doing horrendous acts he had to fulfill for his country. And it was unbelievably distracting to him that now a second woman was constantly on his mind. Using his connections within the SSS, he managed to send some espionage specialists on your case. He claimed to simply be suspicious of you, using the assassination comment as a justification, while making absolutely sure the men that now were observing you didn't interfere with your schedule. Truthfully, he just wanted to know when you worked, without coming off as a creep. And kinda did the opposite in doing so. Eventually the investigation was put on ice after nothing suspicious had been discovered. Well, maybe except for the fact that you seemed to have no friends and spent most of your time just watching TV at home. Or, more specifically, you were on the phone with the few people you did consider friends. The operation had been expensive and it got him into hot water for a while, but nothing he couldn't deal with. Some of his co-workers at the SSS simply started calling him overly cautious behind his back. And then, one day it was finally time again for another haircut. It went like last time. You massaged his scalp with incredible precision, cut his hair slowly yet perfect all the same. And when he paid, he forked over a huge tip. I really can't accept this, sir, you said. After he simply muttered, keep the change. Yet he insisted. You had never gotten so much money out of this before. Well, if you don't want my cash, at least let me invite you for dinner. You did a fantastic job today. You blushed, and the old ladies in the employee break room behind you immediately started giggling and whispering to each other. Sure. My name is Yuri, by the way. You introduce yourself as well, and he smiled. Your date happened 2 days later in a more uppity part of town you never thought you'd ever see the inside of. Either Yuri was loaded or he had connections. But to you it was weird being asked out so out of the blue. Yet he was being an absolute gentleman. And while eating, the two of you talked until the restaurant was getting ready to close. It was a bit embarrassing, to be honest. There was a connection that made it feel like you knew him your entire life. It was so easy to speak to him. Yuri told you about his childhood and his bond with his sister, and you kinda wished you could see her. She sounded like a lovely person. So, since the two of you hit it off so well, it wasn't long until both of your desires aligned. It was the closing shift at the salon. You had just finished sweeping the floors and were about to put your jacket on to leave when the door opened. "Sorry, we're You stopped mid-sentence as you leaned into the main room for the employee break room. "Oh, hey, Yuri," you said, a little confused. The man was holding a bouquet of roses. "Good evening," he said with a smile. "I was hoping we would go out today." You approached him, blushing. "But I'm not well dressed, and those flowers..." Despite your protest, you were still the one to take his arm without him even offering. "I mean, we don't need fancy dates all the time. Can't we just spend some time together?" You looked at him, blushing heavily, and smiling you said, Sure, I'm glad." The two of you wandered through a nearby park. The sun had already vanished and it was a bit chilly. Though you quickly realized that despite this being a seemingly innocent date, the direction was slowly going towards his home. It wasn't long until your assumptions were proven correct. It had been the first time you were in a man's living space. Alone, almost. You felt a bit awkward at first. Though Yuri's place was pretty, maybe a little minimalistic. It desperately needed some decorations. Or, as you'd call it, a woman's touch. According to him, thanks to his poor upbringing, he never got an eye for decorating. Made sense to you. He sat down next to you on the sofa. Yuri had made coffee. Both of you knowing what this meant, and the fact you accepted it, made him so happy and distracted, he completely forgot what topic the two of you had been talking about until this point. Smiling, you leaned against his shoulder. You were warm. So warm. The coffee tasted okay. Maybe asking for 3 cubes of sugar had been a little much. But you were glad when he returned the gesture. I think I love you, Yuri," you said after a peaceful moment. The man set his cup on the living room table, then looked at you, smiling. "I love you too." Your inhibitions only held up for another minute of longingly staring into each other's eyes. Yuri made the first move. His hands reached up to your face, cupping it gently, as he guided you towards his. Your lips touched, at first only barely, then more needy, as lust and desire beat proper table manners. Grunting, he pushed you on your back as your hand stroked over his back. You weren't sure why he had chosen you, but you were glad he did. Hey, thank you for watching my video until the end. If you're new here, I hope you stick around and watch a few more. But before I say goodbye, I'd like to remind you to like the video and subscribe. I also have a Ko-fi and Patreon if you want to support me financially. And I also have a community Discord server. All links are down in the description. Hope you have a good day. Until next time.